Deep in the heart of the Berkshire countryside at Genetic Studios near Reading, London band Then Jerico and their producer Martin Rushent are listening to the final mix of Fault, a song for the band's debut album. Rushent is well known for his use of computer-aided music production with bands like Human League and Visage.
Just a few years ago, the job of record producer was really coaxing the best performance out of an artist that was possible. Now we use computers to aid that process in quite a serious way. I think one of the changes, not so much in my job, but in the way I interrelate with the people I'm working with, is that composition and ideas are now much more important than the ability to play technically.
The production process begins for Rushent when he listens to the band's demo tape. He must first decide where and if computers can help.
Yeah, all right. What's the tempo on it now?
110.
110. That's okay, tempo's fine. But it's got to be, if we're going to make a dance rock track, then we've got to hold the tempo all the way through. So I think we'll use some machine assist on it, on the drums, possibly on bass too. I think the intro's a bit long, isn't it? Don't you think?
You can cut the intro in half, yeah.
You can cut it in half. What, both sections of it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The intro and the
so the flow of
bit.
the intro will be the same, except each section and will be shorter.
And then go straight into the verse.
All right. Well, look. What we're going to do now? We've got the tempo 110. Yeah. Okay. We'll get the part written out and program up a Lin guide pattern for you, and then we'll take it from there. Yeah.
So it gives us 4 bars. Right.
Then Jerico's drummer, Stephen Wren, works with Rushent's assistant to program a basic drum pattern into the Lin drum. This won't end up on the finished track. It's a guide to ensure that all the other electronic instruments keep time. The Lin drum is not, strictly speaking, a synthesizer. The sounds are digital recordings of real drums, encoded on a memory chip.
Well, the Lin drum was really, a few years ago, was a real breakthrough in drum machine technology. Before then, you'd had these purely sort of things that didn't really sound like drums at all. The Lin really did sound vaguely like a drummer, and we use it to lay down the basic patterns and ideas of the drummer on tape to use as a sort of check against what we're doing, to make sure that our higher level machines are playing the basic patterns correctly.
Okay, Steve, looks like that's the programme. Let's see how it plays.
The various machines at Genetic Studios can send each other electronic signals to keep in time. Useful here because Rushent's master plan for the track involves recording most of the drum kit onto tape in the ordinary way, but generating the snare and bass drum sound from the Synclavier, a sophisticated computer and digital synthesizer. So while the cymbals and tom-toms are unalterably committed to tape, Steve and Neil can tinker with the snare and bass drum sound until they're both completely satisfied.
Now that sounds much too heavy.
A bit loud, isn't it?
Yeah, it's too loud.
All right, let's stop this. 35. Let's try and halve it down to 35%.
Well, I think the pulsing bits we'll program, yeah? We'll sample a sound off you.
Yeah.
And we'll program them in.
Yeah, you're going to get more constant level out if you do it.
Yeah, right. And that'll also, we'll be able to lock something up with it. That acoustic we were talking about when we were working the track out, we can lock up with that.
At the end part, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the intros and some of the accents, we'll play those live and mix them in with the machine pulse. Okay, Jasper, what we're going to do is we're going to sample this high G into the Synclavier, right?
Okay.
Okay, now, I'll do a counting because otherwise no one knows when you're going to start. And Neil's got to hit his button before you play to set the computer storing. Right. So if I count 4 in, if you hit it on the 4 and you hit it on the 1, we just want one note, let it last as long as you can,
Yeah.
as clean as you can. All right.
Okay.
You ready now?
I'm ready.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good. Okay, that looks good. So let's hear the high G back first before we sample the next one.
Okay.
Whilst we're set up on it. That sounds alright. Jasper, play us it again, just so we can get a comparison. So that's the real one. Okay, let's hear your one again. Yeah, perfect, identical. Okay, if you can Mark start that one. One of the interesting side effects of digital synthesizers is, as we mentioned before, their ability to sample sounds. Not just sounds like elephants trumpeting in telephones, but actually off other people's records. Drum sounds, bass sounds, brass sounds. In fact, it goes on all the time. I've had cases of I've heard a record and I thought I'll steal the snare drum sound off that. It's really nice, and got it in the machine and looked at the waveform and found out it was one of mine that's been pinched from somewhere else. So it's going on all the time, and I do it quite a lot. What the publishers and people like that are going to say when they find out actually what's going on is going to be rather interesting. But to give you an example of some of the things that are done, I've got an album here by an unknown who I think's got a real future, a man named Mr. David Bowie. And about a couple of years ago he put out an album with a track on it called Let's Dance, and the bass drum and snare drum sound on that record was rather good and has been pinched by many people, including me. So let me just play you, if I can get that thing down, a bit of Let's Dance. Okay. This is Let's Dance by David Bowie, which I think is familiar to some people anyway. So we rather craftily sampled the bass drum and snare drum sound off that record. In fact, I've got it loaded in the machine at the moment. Sometimes this machine decides that we're doing something that really is morally wrong and refuses to do it. However, we're trying to teach it that we live in the real world and not in some sort of utopia. So, Neil is going to reboot this machine so that I can show you. He doesn't like me stealing. So, as I was saying before the machine decided to disobey, I've loaded in the sounds from this Bowie track in here, the bass and snare drum. It's quite remarkably similar. So we used that on an album by a young man called Billy Mackenzie, who trades under the name of The Associates, on a track called 13 Feelings, which if I can just find it. And it's not necessarily so that we use the sound exactly the same as we sampled it. We may tailor it to suit our own particular track. Which band is it? 2, okay. But I think it's recognisable. Right. That's the same drum sound from the record we heard before. It doesn't sound exactly the same because we've tailored it to suit our own track, but it was the character that we were after. And no doubt some crafty devil has sampled that sound and used it on his record. Sometimes I hear a record and go, that drummer is magnificent. What tremendous feel and power and stuff there, and only to find out 2 weeks later I've been listening to a machine. But I haven't been listening to a machine. I've been listening to a human mind working through a machine. You know, I mean, I don't think it makes you any a better carpenter by the fact that you can bash nails in with your fist with no machine. You know, the smart guy uses a hammer. It's less painful.